what's up? Jason here from Unity3D.College, and today I'm really excited because Unity's new nested prefab system is finally here and ready for us to use. As the name implies, it allows you to nest your prefabs. You can have parent prefabs and children in entire hierarchies. It's kind of like composition for game objects. Now don't get this confused with prefab variants, which are more like inheritance. If you're interested in those though, make sure to check back tomorrow. I'll be doing a full video on those and showing the differences and how you can use them in your project. Let's get started with an example of how you could use this nested prefab system in a real project. We're going to begin with a spaceship. I've grabbed this modular Space Raider pack off the asset store. It's a free asset and it's pretty cool. It's got a couple different spaceships with different parts. And we've pulled in model 1, which is this green ship, and it's expanded. You can see there are a bunch of engine parts here that can select independently, and the weapons, which is exactly what I want to demonstrate this. So normally if I wanted to make these weapons into actual weapons that shot stuff, what I might do is just add a weapon script onto each one of these. But then if I needed to update this ship and I wanted to change those weapons, I'd have to go in and change every single weapon on there. For instance, here I have a weapon script on this weapon, and maybe I've added a muzzle flash particle. In fact, let's add one. Muzzle flash. So we drop on our muzzle flash particle, and maybe we've got this on all of these other game objects. So we copy it, and we've pasted it onto all of these, and we want to change it, right? So we drop this on here, and then later on we're going, hey, we need to change the particle. We'd have to go back through every single spaceship that's using these weapons and go through and change this weapon particle flash reference right here. And that's kind of a pain, not really worth the time, and there are a couple of other ways to accomplish this, but now with the new prefab system, the easiest way to accomplish this is to simply make these weapons into other prefabs. So what I'm going to do is go to this root prefabs folder that I've created. It's just an empty folder named prefabs under the root. And now normally if I wanted to make this weapon a prefab, I'd just drop it right in here, but look what happens. It says, hey, you cannot restructure a prefab instance. What's happening is this prefab, this model 1 prefab already exists, and it wants to go into prefab edit mode because I'm not allowed to just change the prefab anymore in the scene hierarchy. So instead, what I'm going to do is hit cancel, and I'm going to just duplicate my weapon and pull it out so it's no longer a child of that prefab. Then I'll pull it down here and turn it into its own prefab and rename it weapon to keep it nice and clean. And now notice that I can't edit over here anymore. If you're used to the old versions of Unity, you would see the inspector here. You'd be able to go change values. That doesn't work anymore with the new flow. Instead, we just hit open prefab. And this takes us to this full prefab editing mode. Notice that the hierarchy is all clear. We only have the weapon, but we do have this back button, so we can go back to the main scene that we were in. But I can also just kind of click forward either on here by going to open prefab, or since I have an instance of it because I created it by dragging there, I can just click on the arrow to go into prefab mode. In fact, if I go back, go into model 1, you can see I can edit this prefab and go back here, go back to our weapon, we can see the weapon again. Now, let's go nest some prefabs. So we'll go back to our scene, and we have our model 1 ship. I'm going to turn this into a different prefab, so I'm just going to take this model 1, drop it down into prefabs, and hit original prefab because I want to create a new prefab. I don't want to do a variant. Again, if you're interested in variants, make sure you check for the variant video. It should be linked here or coming out tomorrow. But I'm going to hit original prefab, and I'm going to name this, let's just call it green ship. Give it a nice simple name. In fact, I'm going to rename it up here too. I should have done that right before I created the prefab, then I wouldn't have had to do it twice. So we've got our green ship here, and I want to add this weapon as a child. Now, I could just try dropping the weapon right here, but you're going to see, again, I get this message saying, hey, children can't be deleted, moved, and components can't be reordered. You have to open it in prefab mode. So again, I can just hit open prefab, and now it went into the prefab mode for the ship. The weapon is not added though, so I still need to do that again. So I'm just going to take the weapon, and I'm going to drop it right up there, and now I have the prefab version of my weapon. Now, let's go look at it. It's sitting off here, not where it needs to be, and I have 4 weapons normally on this ship right there. They're there. So what I'm going to do is just select the weapon, the first one here, right-click, hit copy component, and I'm just going to paste the component values. And we'll do this real quick. We'll duplicate this weapon 1, 2, 3 more times. I'm just going to drag these right up here so they're in order. And I'm going to copy all of these transform positions. So we'll go copy and paste. and copy and paste. And we'll be done in just 1 second. And this is just going to put the weapons all exactly where they need to be. So you see that that one just kind of snapped right in. And they are on top of each other right now. So the original weapons are there underneath these new ones. So we'll just remove those once I finish pasting these values. So copy and paste. And that's the end of them. And then I should be able to select all of these original weapons and delete, because the weapon prefabs are now in their place. So we've got weapon prefabs and we've got a green spaceship. Let's go back and look at it again. We can see our weapon right here is the prefab now underneath this green ship. And we still haven't really done anything that bought us much yet, because we haven't taken advantage of the value of these prefab changes. Like I said before, one of the things we might want to do is just change the muzzle flash. Maybe we want a different particle there. Well, first, let's maybe hook up that particle. To do that, I'm just going to select my green ship and we'll add a ship script. And the ship script, you can see, has already found all of my child weapons, and it's found no engines yet. Let's take a look at this script to show you how it works. It's very simple, and then we'll go into actually changing these prefabs. So here's our ship script. We have an array of weapons, an array of engines. They're both private with serialized field attributes, so they'll show up in the inspector. And then in the onValidate method, we're filling our weapons with all of the components and children that are weapons, and the engines with all of the components that are engines. This works perfect for this prefab workflow that I'm doing here. Since everything's going to be a child prefab with its own script on it, I can just pull these all in on validate, which happens when we save or do a build or anything like that. So they're going to be set, and they're going to be set correctly. If I needed to customize this, it might not work, but for this example, I think it works kind of perfect. Then in our update, we check to see if the fire one method was, or the fire one button was pressed, which is by default left click or space or a button on a controller. If it was, we call fire weapons. And then at the end of update, we set some thrust. We're not dealing with thrust yet. We don't have engines, so you can just kind of ignore that. In fact, I'll collapse it. So fire weapons. Let's zoom in and look at this. What does it do? Well, it loops through all of the weapons and calls fire. Pretty simple, right? So let's go to definition on that. Just control and click. And here you'll see that we have a weapon script. This is what's on our weapon. It has that muzzle flash particle reference. That's a particle system, and a fire method that just plays the particle. So it doesn't really do much for a weapon, but it does give us that flash. So now we've got all of that hooked up. I should be able to just hit play, left click, and see a particle. Let's see. There we go. We're playing. It's building. And oh, look, we're really, really far away. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take my camera right there, go to scene view, hit Control-Shift-F so that the camera right here, this object's transform, position, and rotation, just match my scene view one. Then I go back to my game view and I can see, and I can click, but nothing's happening. Now there's a good reason that this isn't working. In fact, if we go to the project view and we select this muzzle flash particle, you'll see that we're actually referencing something that's in the project. It's not in the scene. It's not an actual game object that's instantiated. And our script, if we look here, is calling play on that. So I'm trying to play a particle in the project view. That's not going to work. But because we have this new nested prefab system, it's going to be easy for us to fix. What I can do is just select this weapon, or I could go to the prefab version of it, and just go into edit mode. And then I'll find my particle here, this muzzle flash, drag it out, and make it a child. Now I want to reset the position because it's who knows where, somewhere far away. So just hit reset, right click and reset. And now it's in the kind of right position, but it's a little too big and, well, oriented wrong. So I'm going to drag it out a little and then shrink it way down. So hit E and go to the scale tool. Shrink that way, way down to maybe like 10%. And let's see, let's zoom in a bit. I think that's a little bit closer. Then we'll go to rotate, hitting E to go to rotate. Did I say E for scale? It was R for scale, E for rotate. And this should be 90 right here. There we go. And if I look at it from here, I can see that it's still too far away. In fact, I can even pause the particle, make it a little bit easier to work with, and just kind of line it up so that it's pretty close to the front of the weapon right here. So something like that, and maybe up just a tiny bit. Somewhere, that's pretty close. So now I've got this muzzle flash in the right position as a child of this weapon. And if I select the weapon and update this reference, so I just drag it from there right into our muzzle flash and go back, Well, let's see what happened. Look at all of our weapons. If I expand them out, they've all already updated. I didn't have to apply. I didn't have to do anything else. I just went into prefab mode, edited the prefab, and when I left, those changes were saved automatically. So now I can hit play. And as soon as I start clicking, we should start to see particles. Oh no, I moved my ship again. So let's stop that and let's move the camera one more time. Luckily, just go right here. Control Shift F again. Save that. And let's save our scene as, let's call this ship. Ship 1. There we go. Now we'll play with the camera in the correct position. And we should see some muzzle flashes come firing off of there. In fact, they're actually firing off nonstop. Now the reason they keep firing is because I left loop on this prefab here, this muzzle flash. So let's stop and fix that as well. So here, notice that this muzzle flash has the arrow because we dragged a prefab here. We're actually 3 levels deep. So I can go to this muzzle flash prefab and just get rid of the loop option. In fact, I could do it right here, or I could go down into the project view, remember, and hit open prefab. And if I just turn off looping, and then we go back and hit play, we should see that we're no longer looping the muzzle flash on any of them. There we go, and as I click, it shoots. Perfect. Now before we go any further, let's take a look at the inspector, because there are some changes there that you may have noticed. So if we select our green ship, remember that we don't have an apply button anymore. Since we're going into this edit mode, there's no reason to do an apply. But instead we have this overrides option, which is kind of similar actually. So if I click on it, here, actually I need to drag this in a little bit. There we go. If I click on overrides, you'll see that we have a little hierarchy here, a little tree of the changes. And in this example, it's showing that we added a script to our green ship that's not on our prefab. So this instance of it right here has a ship script that's not on the actual prefab. If I go select the prefab, in fact, let's just go select this green ship. Remember, we can't see the inspector here, but I hit open prefab. Now we're in prefab mode for this ship. It may look very similar, but notice that it changed right here. We're in this prefab mode and there's no ship script on here. If I go back into our scene view, this one has the ship script. So this override here is saying, hey, we have a plus for this script. We added that script. And if you click on it, well, if I drag this in even more, you might be able to see it on screen. If I click on it, you can even see the script values that are set here. So this is what's been changed on the prefab. Now I'm going to drag this back out just a bit, and we'll hit overrides, and I'm just going to hit apply all. Now, when I click on this again, we should see that there are no overrides, meaning that we don't have anything that's different from the prefab here. And if I open up the prefab mode, just hit open, you'll see that now we see the script while we're in prefab mode. Now, if I want to go make another change, let's say we went down here, and for some reason on this muzzle flash, we were making it green. Now let's play and see this green particle appear. We should see our green and our orange. Let's see, there we go. We're shooting and we've got a green one and an orange one because we're now overriding the start color. So let's stop again and notice that this is bold. And if I go to my overrides on the parent right here, we see that our particle system has a change and it's showing the same exact thing with a bold. I can even right click on it and I can apply at different levels. Now I can do that from this little pop-up, or I can just go back down to the actual object and I can do it right here as well. So I can apply the override to the prefab green ship, which would just apply it to this actual prefab for the ship so that only this ship and its first weapons, first muzzle flash right there is going to be green. I could also apply it to the weapon so that it updates for every single weapon, or I could apply it to the muzzle flash so it updates for everything using that muzzle flash. Got a lot of options here. Say I want to leave the muzzle flash prefab alone though, but I want all of the weapons on here to be green. Just hit apply to weapon, and now every one of these is going to be green, but only because this weapon is set that way. So this is now a weapon on this prefab that is set to, well, use a green muzzle flash. In fact, if we go select our weapon here, or just go into it, see that the muzzle flash is green right here. Pretty cool, right? I think that this is a really useful system. I think it's going to be really helpful for building these things up. And in fact, I want to go through just another example if you're still interested in seeing a little bit more of this and add in an engine. So we'll do that now. I've got engine 1 and engine 2, and I'm going to go to the scene view again. We've got engine 1 is this big giant thing. I'm going to ignore that for now. We're going to go with engine 2. We're going to make engine 2 into its own prefab as well. So we'll go through this process again. We'll go to the prefabs folder, and we're going to take this engine and just pull it out of that hierarchy. Oh, not what I wanted to do, but this will work. So we're going to do it in prefab mode. Let's see if we can pull this right out of here and drop it into prefabs. And there we go. So now our engine child here of this green chip is a prefab. It's named engine 2, and we can edit this engine. We can do it by double clicking here, hitting open, or hitting the arrow. Let's go for the arrow. It seems to be the way that I've been doing it lately. And then I'm going to hit add component, and we'll add the engine script that I've written. Let's take a quick look at the engine script. It's really simple. The engine script has a set thrust method that takes an amount of thrust, and it spams the log with that amount. I'm going to actually delete that. And then we check to see if the thrust is greater than 0. If it is, and the particle system is not already playing, we call play. Otherwise, if the thrust is 0 or less, we call stop on the particle system. We need this is playing check, otherwise the particle system will keep restarting and it'll never look right. It'll look like it's just keeping trying to start and never actually going through the whole process. And then we also, of course, have our serialized private particle system reference right here that we're assigning in the editor. So let's go back to the editor and, well, create that particle system or assign the particle system. I've actually got a particle here that came in the example effects from Unity. So if you've grabbed the latest Unity particle effects, it's the one that doesn't say 5.x on it. It's got all kinds of really cool particle effects. And I believe the one that I found that I liked was under the fire explosions and prefabs, and it was a flame stream. So I'm going to take this flame stream and just drop it on top of the engine. And again, I'll have to reset the position because it always goes to something wonky and weird. And there we go. Now I've got giant fire shooting up really, really far out of the top of the engine. Not what I want. So we'll switch to the scale tool with R and drag that way down so that it looks like a reasonable size at least. Maybe like that. Then I'll rotate it, hit E, go to rotate and hold control so that it snaps every 15 degrees until it gets to that -90 and it looks about right. There we go. Looks like I've got flames coming out of my engine. Not bad. I do want to rotate it though, because I want the flames and the smoke to go up, not down. So I'm going to rotate it over here 180 degrees. Again, if you hold control while you're in this rotate, it does that snapping. That's why you're seeing that little grid there. So now we've got an engine that shoots out flames, well, whenever the thrust is set. So let's go back. And we've got our engine here. And I want to replace these other engines. So I've got 3 more engines that are not the prefab. So I'm just going to do what I normally do and duplicate this one 3 times and just replace the transform positions. There's probably an easier way to do this, and I should search for it. So if you happen to know an easier way to do this, please let me know. As long as it's an easier way that doesn't require everybody go out and buy some asset or something. If it's free and easy to use, that'd be great. Anyway, let's paste in these values, get them all moved into the position. So again, just copying the transform values and pasting them on the prefab versions as paste component values. And then I'll move them up here and delete out all these old engine models. Oh, wait, engine 2s only, not engine 1. So now I should have 4 engines in the right place. Oh no, I've lost one. One of them I didn't move. Let's see. Is it that one, that one, that one? Oh, I have 2 engines in the same place over here. So let's just grab one. I don't think it matters too much. We'll get it right down, kind of in place. Good enough. So now I've got 4 engines on my ship. I can go back to my scene view, hit play, and now when I give it some horizontal thrust, so just hit the up arrow, we should see our engines start to light up. Oh, look at that. They're already going. Again, this is the same kind of thing. The particle is set to be always playing, so now it's just kicking off whether we're hitting the thing or not. And again, we have a nice easy solution because of this nested prefab system. I don't have to go in and change it for every single engine here. I can just find this actual prefab, again, three levels deep here, and I could just turn off looping, but I don't want to change this fire or flame stream prefab to not loop by default because it does seem like the kind of particle that should be looping. So instead, I'm going to go to the engine, just go to edit mode on that, and then select the child and uncheck looping there. So now we're only applying this change, well, not there, we're doing it at the engine level. If I right click and hit apply to flame stream prefab, that would do it to my particle, and I don't want to do that. I only want it on this engine. So now I go back, and now all of my engines should have the looping unchecked. But if I select this actual flame stream prefab and go open prefab here, it has the looping. So the flame stream can still work totally fine. I haven't broken it, but I've updated my engines to use it the way that I need. Now I hit play again. It should load right up. I should be able to hit some thrust and see some fire going. And look at that, it's still broken. It's still going whether I hit the button or not. Well, let's take another look. Let's look at our flame stream. It seems okay. If we look at our engine though, look, our particle system's missing too. So stop again and just go edit this prefab. Now I'm not going to go into edit mode. Instead, I'll just drop that right onto here and then right click and hit apply to the prefab, but I don't want to do it to the green chip. Because remember, if I do that, it's not going to do it for all of these other engines. It will just do it for this one in the ship. I'll apply it to the engine 2 prefab, and now every one of these engine 2s should be updated. And if I hit play, my ship should finally work as expected. Let's see. So I hit the engines, there we go. Flames come out, I let go, and it stops. And now I'll not talk and you can hear the click. And there we go. See, it's just working as we expect it to work. And if I left click or hit control, or yeah, I said space earlier, I think. Left control. If I hit left control, I get my green shots firing out. So I hope that you see how useful this system is. And remember that you can put these prefabs, these child prefabs, onto any other prefabs. You can mix and match them and build this whole hierarchy of stuff. I wouldn't get too complicated. Don't make it too confusing, but use it where it makes sense. And again, if you're interested in the variants for this system, which I think are another really important and really powerful thing, make sure that you check that video out as well. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with all your friends. And again, thanks for watching and goodbye.